Hey, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Lakers on YouTube. The Lakers staying active on day 2 of free agency, adding 2 more players to the roster, one a returning guy, one brand new. Let's start with the new guy, Kendrick Nunn, backup point guard at Miami, joins the Lakers to fill that role in Los Angeles. 2 years, $10 million player option for the second year. And so now we know where the Lakers are spending their veterans mid-level money. It goes to Kendrick Nunn. I really like this signing for the Lakers. 6'2" guy going into his third NBA season. Very hard worker on the court. He'll handle the point guard minutes behind Russell Westbrook. He's a credible enough starter in those games where Westbrook might need to sit, or if he's dinged up for a couple games. And in Kendrick Nunn, the Lakers have a guy who can go and get you some buckets. We talked about that a little bit earlier about in terms of Malik Monk from the shooting guard spot. Kendrick Nunn can do that for you as a point guard. 38% from three-point range last year. Lakers fans probably remember him lighting up LA for 27 points, 5 for 6 from three-point range in that game. So yeah, he's not exactly a defensive stalwart. One of the reasons he would go in and out of the rotation with Eric Spoelstra in Miami was based on defense. And the Heat did give up a few more points with him on the court last year than they did when he was off. They also scored more when he was there. So his on-off numbers are generally neutral. Not necessarily a disaster on that side of the floor, but this goes on with the themes of the guys that the Lakers have been picking up. They're not necessarily great two-way players, and Frank Vogel is going to have to figure out how to make some of these things work. Kendrick Nunn, also not necessarily a classic ball distribution guy, is more of a scoring point guard, and that's relevant because the Lakers, as I mentioned, brought back Talen Horton Tucker, 3 years, $32 million for THT. And he's very likely going to handle some of those ball handling responsibilities with that second unit next to Kendrick Nunn. So, that's something that THT can do. He needs to work on his shooting, obviously. But as a very young player, it was very significant that the Lakers were able to keep him, especially after letting Alex Caruso go to Chicago on Monday. Had both of those guys been taken away from the Lakers in the rotation, it would have been really difficult for them. Would have been a big loss in that regard. Overall, you have to like what the Lakers have been able to do with their limited options in free agency in terms of how much money they could spend. They only had that veterans mid-level, which, as you now know, goes to Kendrick Nunn, and veterans minimum contract. So that's all they had to work with. And in doing so, they've managed to fill a lot of needs. They've replaced some of the shooting they lost in the Westbrook trade, adding guys like Wayne Ellington. Nunn is a credible three-point shooter. Carmelo Anthony, good three-point shooter in that regard. So Rob Pelinka with the signings has done very well. Still don't like the Caruso thing, but you have to like what they've done with their limited means. It's going to be a difficult process for Vogel, though, to sort all of these players out because they have strengths and very obvious weaknesses, most of them coming defensively. Finding the right lineup combinations is going to take a little while. It's going to be something the Lakers are working on through most of the season. Plenty more to talk about with this day 2, combined with what the Lakers did on Monday. We'll do all of that on the next episode of Locked On Lakers. Be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, wherever you get your podcast, and also to Locked On Lakers on YouTube for all of your news and information. We'll see you next time.